right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals, and everything we talk about leads to deals. As you know, I believe sales is one of the greatest sports in the world, and my goal is to bring those athletes, those coaches, onto this podcast that have the same burning appetite and desire to improve people's lives through helping them understand sales better. And with that being said, I am super stoked to have somebody I look up to in this industry, somebody that I know has his own sales experience, and because of his unique value add to the industry today, gets to see behind the scenes on so many sales operations. So with that being said, David Olds, ezREIclosings, brother, thank you for coming out.
Scott, man, big honor to be here, dude. I'm super excited. Love the podcast. So I'm like psyched to be here.
Dude, I love it too. And honestly, I met you like week one of the industry too. Like for me, like I was just kind of like brand new, definitely within my first 6 months when I met you. And I think it was at a Miami event through some mutual friends. And
dude, you were presenting. I think it might have been at Ricardo's event. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy with all this energy? And my God, who is doing this guy's presentations? It looks like it's from fucking ESPN. I'm like, and I'm up there with my shitty fucking slides going, like, I can't, like, what is this? I can't go after this guy. Come on.
And you actually said that. I remember now that you said that, you were like, dude, who did your shit? ESPN?
Yeah, like he's like dun dun dun, like shit's turning. I'm like, who the fuck puts this shit together? I can't do that. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
made the rest of us look like amateurs that day.
It was so cool because after that, people I also look up to you, but like Nick Perry and a bunch of those other presenters. I remember I was standing in the hallway as soon as I walked off, and I was surrounded by all of you guys, major players, like just talking to me, like, who's this guy? A little skeptical, a little curious, more curious than skeptical. And I remember handing somebody the phone, and I was like, take a picture of this. This is I want to remember and look back at this because I really enjoy the industry that you're in. I'm not married to the industry. I'm married to mousetraps. I always say, like, it's not just the process is stronger than the people. The process is stronger than the product. One of the things that I believe I've done really well as an entrepreneur, at least continue and have the opportunity to grow while doing good, is being able to take all the sales skills, the art of communication skills, and roll them into a mousetrap that's profitable. And so I found your guys' mousetrap, which is the REI space and wholesaling and investing. So I guess for you, I know you're a good communicator. I've seen you on stage. I've seen you kind of pitch and do your thing. But when did your like sales journey, or at least those experiences, start happening for you?
You know, man, it's interesting because I am so incredibly introverted. Like, people laugh when I tell them that. And I'm like, I promise you, like, I could just as easily sit in the back of the room and not talk to anybody. So, you know, it was sort of a weird evolution for me. You know, went to college. I have a degree in criminal justice, which I never use now. Maybe dealing with my tenants. You know, I worked in retail. And, you know, funny story, I worked in this big hardware chain in Florida, and like a manager had to spend like 3 hours standing at the front door every day, like greeting customers. And I fucking hated it more than anything because I'm just so painfully shy. So that kind of got me over it a little bit. But then eventually I went into outside sales, selling lumber and building materials, doors and windows, that type of stuff. And that was a challenge, like cold calling, you know, going up and knocking on, you know, on businesses and trying to build those relationships. Can
I ask why you made that pivot? Because going from an introvert to door knocking is like A to Z. Like, it doesn't go more deep into the pond than that.
Yeah, it was so much door knocking, but I was visiting, you know, like purchasing managers and stuff like that. You know, it was part of the job. I went from running the largest mill shop in Central Florida to an outside sales position because it paid more. But I was never a great like rainmaker salesperson. Like that was not the thing I was great at. I was a fucking amazing account manager, right? So for me, you know, it really initially, like, I just needed an intro. Man, if you just intro me to somebody, I'm good. But and this is personally too, like, you know, at a big event, like walking up to you and going like, hey, that's that guy I see on the podcast. Hey, Scott, I'm David Old. Like, oh boy, it's everything in my being to force myself to do that. And I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. It's incredibly out of my comfort zone. But like, once somebody introduces us, we're best fucking friends. Like, I'm a great, like, from that point on. So, you know, so that's the struggle that I personally have with sales. So, you know, that was hard to overcome. And then speaking on stage, I'm okay at it now. I wish I was half as good as you on your worst day, but, like I'm a terrible self-promoter, dude. You're fucking great. Like I was commenting on that yesterday. Like I for real wish I could again be half as good as you on the worst day that you're having. But yeah, getting on stage was incredibly difficult for me. I mean, I get super hyper nervous, like my chest constricts, I can't fucking breathe. And so kind of to answer your question, I just got to the point where I had to realize that there's something I have, just if it's just from sheer doing this for 22 years, some value to give, right? And so that's kind of the way that I approach it is, how can I help you? Which I think hopefully is how most people should approach things in this business, right? How can we help our sellers? How can we help our clients? How can we, add value where we can? And by doing that, I feel like the sales will come.
You always see this. It's almost like the kiss of death with a lot of people that get into sales. When they get into sales, they're so enthusiastic that they just get deals everywhere. The deals come, the deals come, the deals come. But as that enthusiasm wanes, as that newness wanes, if they're not educated on their product, they're going to have some type of drop. And that's what I love about authenticity. You guys like you who are more introverted, because it's not that you're a flashy sales guy. It's that you're educated so much in your product that you convey trust, you convey knowledge, you convey expertise. Because like you're right, you're not flailing your hands everywhere. You're not doing jumping jacks. You're not asking people to clap. You're not throwing money off of stages. You're literally
I crave the ability to do that. I wish I could. I see, you, Brent Franklin, these guys that are up there doing that. I'm like, fuck, man, I wish I could do that and pull that off. But, it doesn't work,
But for those guys and gals out there who are considering sales and they're in a job and they're like, hey, I got this sales role that's out there. I don't think you really have to be an extrovert at all. And candidly, other than when I'm in performance mode, which is like time to go, dude, I don't really like talking to people. I don't like going to the events too terribly much, maybe for a similar reason, but I always just want to surround myself with authentic people. And this is something we'll touch on later about the industry. It's a very wonky thing. Well, you'll have people who live in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2010s success and talk about it like it's today. Because it's you can't do that. So for you, going back to your sales side real quick before we go into ezREI, but did you have like a sales mentor, or did you just have to kind of wing it on your own? Did you have somebody who's pouring into you to help you get out there and produce something?
Yeah, no, I didn't really have a great mentor on that side. I mean, a couple of people that I came across, throughout my life. One was when I worked in Vero Beach, Florida, I was in I worked for this hardware company. I was in this office and we had the corporate recruiter was in there with us. His name was Leo. He was like, I was 23 and he was like the old guy at the time, like 60. But I remember him telling me this story about, when I got started, smoky guy, guy who smoked, when I got started, my boss told me one time, if I put that fucking phone down one more time, he was going to tape it to the side of my head. Right. So I learned at that point, you got to stay on the phone, right? You got to keep that phone up and keep dialing. And that has gotten me through, again, when I first started in this business and I was calling leads back, I would, again, I'm that person. I could sit and stare at that piece of paper for 3 hours and go find all the reasons not to pick up the phone and call them, right? But, again, at some point you have to pick up the damn phone and do the thing and make the call. So, I go back to old Leo telling me, do not put the phone down, right? You just got to make the calls, man. And I'm sure you see this with your team, right? You have to make the calls.
Yeah, you have to make the calls, and we have an infrastructure and a culture here that forces that habit to a certain degree, but you don't want to be miserable doing it. It's square peg, round hole. But what you said when you were describing that makes me think of Glengarry Glen Ross, and we're old enough to remember that was like before Boiler Room, before Wolf of Wall Street. So for anybody who's watching this, Glengarry Glen Ross, it was an 80s movie, but it was a lethal sales, and he's clanging the balls in the guy's face, and it was a good movie, good damn movie. But that's what your story reminded me of.
Yeah, let me tell you this. So I was doing a training thing for some acquisitions people, I don't know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I love to show like the Boiler Room clip, a little clip from the Wolf of Wall Street guy, Jordan Belfort. So anyways, I'm showing that clip with Alec Baldwin. And I realized as I'm watching it with these three people it was a little bit of a diverse crowd. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, fuck, this does not translate to 2023. Like this is, I'm cause you know what he's saying, right? Like he's saying, yeah. I'm like, hey, so this is not like 1980. Let's just keep it in perspective. Like, let's not get upset about it. Let's take it for what it is. Right. But it didn't age as well as we remember.
When I started my first sales career, I was very blessed that I installed a security alarm. I was doing something non-sexy. I was a worker bee. I was a grunt. I barely finished high school. Parents didn't, et cetera, et cetera. Mom did, dad didn't. But it was just bottom barrel, middle class destiny if I didn't really bust ass. And that, I don't mean that in any negative way whatsoever. But in that journey, I ended up installing a security alarm at this big gorgeous resort. And I was like, what is this? And I ended up, long story short, I asked the guys, I'm teaching them how to program the thing. I'm like, what do you guys do? Everybody's young and got nice cars. What is going on? And they're like, we sell timeshare. I'm like, what the f- is timeshare? And then they explained it to me, and I went back to my guy and I said, hey, tomorrow, because they had a project, my last day, I'll be back. And I'm done. I'm going into that. But that was selling a sexy product. You were selling hardware and lumber. Like that I was given the benefit of selling something sexy like palm trees and beaches and memories and vacations. I can't even imagine selling lumber.
Yeah, lumber, like everybody has the same lumber, windows, right? It's a vinyl double hung insulated window, right? There is no difference. So in those cases, and this is like a lot of, retail and traditional sales where, you're going to win on service, right? At the end of the day, lumber's a whore's market. Like literally lumber works at 2, 3, maybe 4% margin. It's incredibly low. You sell lumber cheap to sell the garage door that you're going to make 30% on, the interior doors and stuff. So, it's your business has to be based on service. Like you have to make sure you're there for your clients. And then when they order stuff, like it's got to show up, like, it's on time, it's complete, it's all of those things. Like Kent Clothier says, our buddy, it's a sea of mediocrity out there. There are plenty of people that are just fucking throwing shit against the wall and hoping for the best. So, if you care and you pay attention, it's not always that hard to excel. You just, showing up is so much, what is it? It's half the battle, right? Yep. It really is. There are just so many, even in our business today with title companies and stuff, my God, some of people are just fucking terrible. Like, I don't even understand. Like you're in a business serving people and you act like you don't care. You have this huge level of apathy or, you want to be fighting with people all the time.
Yeah, I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse, but I want to tie down on something you said there, which is I think that the REI space in general has accepted across the board overwhelmingly a very low barrier of entry and barrier of deliverables. And so what you just said is exactly correct. There's so many title companies out there. It's super transactional to them. They're not in the relationship business out there. They're just processing paperwork, and they have that apathy that they don't really appreciate. No, like if I do this well and I execute this well, a roofer's going to get a job, a lawn care guy's going to get a job, a painter's going to get a job, a new family's going to celebrate their best Christmas that they've ever had in their entire lives in this new house, and all this butterfly effect. And so when I see a guy like you say that, like, I know how much you care about your product, and I know by working with title companies throughout the years how easy it is for them to just be so transactional that you want to be one and done with them.
Yeah, I was speaking a couple of weeks ago at this corporate retreat this company, and that's what I was explaining to them. Like, hey, like I know you guys don't necessarily deal with the clients, but what you do is important, right? Because what you do helps the wholesaler, right? And because the wholesaler is there, he can help the seller, the buyer, again, the roofer, the title company. Like it is this ripple effect of what we do out there in the business. But to also go back to you say something that's exactly what I say. Wholesaling, the great thing about wholesaling is it's a very low barrier of entry, right? Anybody can get in it, short, tall, fat, skinny, black, blue, purple, like whatever the fuck it is. Everybody can, it's a great equalizer. Everybody can get into this business and make $1 million. And I promise you, if you're listening to this, there was somebody stupider than you who's making 10 times as much because they're just following the process over and over and over again. However, also the bad thing about wholesaling, low barrier of entry, and any shithead can get into it, right? So I think, wholesaling does attract people who don't maybe have a professional background. Like I came from corporate America, so I kind of have a little bit of that background. Sure. And that's okay, right? We get a lot of people who maybe, just worked, I don't know, as a chef or at Walmart or something like that. And I think they don't always have the highest expectations. So they put up with a lot of bullshit from clients. Or from vendors. So I just got off the phone with very few private coaching clients. And this guy's telling me about a PPC vendor who, Scott, 3 months, He's paid this guy like $13,000, 0 PPC leads. I'm like, dude, shut them off today.
100%.
What the fuck are we doing? PPC, it's a faucet. It's not SEO, right? Like it should start tomorrow. And anyways, I mean, just that companies act like that and don't care just makes me out of my mind.
And because we could go on a tangent that we won't go too far down, but because of the low barrier entry, the expectations are low and people are abusive. But one thing that I experienced, I know that you've seen, and you could have seen it with me, but you already said you didn't. But sometimes when you go to these events as a newbie or whatever, like you'll see people on stage, you're like, I know I'm smarter than that guy. I got more charisma than that guy. I got more sales skills. So once you get in here, you can see like, even and I say this with love because everybody's got potential to grow, but there's some mediocre hobbyists. The bulk of this industry is mediocre hobbyists. And if you don't want to treat it as a hobby and you want to treat it as a way to build generational wealth without being too cliche and being able to provide for your family and being able to really build a portfolio and move on to bigger and better things, it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful industry, which I'll piggyback. How did you make the transition into the REI space yourself? Because you were doing lumber, you're doing these other things, but how did you finally get into like, I'm going to be a wholesaler?
Yeah, desperation, really. So, real short, I started in 2002. We bought our first house. It was a foreclosure. But growing up, my dad was like the house fix-it guy, right? So we put on additions, we did siding, we did roofing, we did all that shit. Hated every minute of it as a kid. I said, when I grow up, I'll never make my kids do this shit. But, there I am working at hardware stores. We buy a house. The natural thing is I started fixing it up. We sold it. We made some money and just started doing that over and over again in Orlando, in Central Florida. And then, the crash happened, right? 2009, which was a real crash. It wasn't this bullshit that we did 2 years ago. Like it was, it was for real. And, I had actually tried wholesaling in Florida and it didn't work, which is crazy because people know me for like being a wholesale guy. So when we relocated to Chattanooga, like I came here with $5,000, like a wife, 2 boys, 3 fat dogs. Like I had no fucking choice, right? Like I had to make it work. People talk about that whole burn the boats thing. Like don't fucking do that if you're married and have kids. It's stupid, right? Like, but that's what I did. And, like there was no option. We had to figure out a way to make it work. And desperation will make you do, a lot of things, some of them good, some of them illegal. Luckily, it was good for me. And, we went out and did 37 deals that first year. So that was really the transition. Was I just had no fucking choice. I didn't have time to get into a rehab that was going to take 6 months to get a check. I needed today money right now. And that was wholesaling.
And speaking of doing things illegal, there's so many people out there, so many kids, so many youth that I just hope and I pray that they stumble through the YouTube algorithm into a video like this, because we all in our youth have done things that if we would have gotten in trouble for, we would have been in a lot of trouble. Our lives we should have gotten in trouble.
Jail.
Whatever it meant. And if I would have known about this, and if my buddies in high school would have known about this, if I would have known those same shitty houses that we were sitting beside or doing whatever inside or whatever, was a way to not have to look in their rearview mirror. Not have to like I'm telling you guys and gals that are out there, you don't have to be a sales expert. You just got to have hustle muscle. You got to be a little coachable based on what's available online and be willing to put up with pain because it's not going to be easy. But when you can make 17.5 wholesaling a piece of contract, or you got to sell weed for 4 months to make 17.5 and risk going to jail or risk getting in trouble, this is the plug. This is the way to start building up a little bit of money.
Yeah. And I agree. And I'm not the guy who's like, nobody should go to college. Everybody should be an entrepreneur, because not everybody can do it. Not everybody's built for that. But my God, the schools should do a better job, at least presenting it as an option and, educating people and kind of opening their mind a little bit.
Do you think Chattanooga was more your speed? Do you think you got along a little bit better with people? Why do you think you were more successful there than Florida?
Yeah. Great question. So, Florida, again, just, where we were at the time, the market had crashed. It was super competitive, and Florida crashed harder than a lot of states. Yes. So we were looking for, really, I didn't come to Chattanooga to wholesale. I wanted to buy apartments, right? Which is what I think every investor wants to ascend up to. So, pick Chattanooga just because the market was very diverse. It wasn't going to crash the way that Florida did. And so why were we successful? We got here, there was no investor community, none, like nobody, there was no full-time wholesalers. We were the first ones. So that's good, right? Because we were leading the market, and we absolutely dominated for God, 7 or 8 years, we were by far the number one people. But that comes with challenges too. Like we had to explain to people what's an assignment of contract. Like I would talk to a buyer and he'd be like, boy, what's an assignment of contract? I don't understand. Right. Like, so, we created this, okay, we're not going to do assignments. I'm just going to sell you this property, but it's going to look like a contract, but it's really an assignment contract. Right. We had to go to title companies and explain to them what we were doing. So that was one advantage. Two, I'm originally from Boston, came from Florida. So like I operated a little bit faster speed. So like, that's good. Like that gave me that hustle. And I kind of grew up with that, right. To push through some of the problems, right. Like it's a little bit laid back here. It's not like being maybe down there in the Keys, but it wasn't challenging to dominate. And also, again, desperate, right? Had to do it. When people ask all the time, like, what made you successful? Well, one, I'm not that fucking smart, but I'm incredibly coachable, and I try to learn from my mistakes. But real estate was the only thing I thought about, right? In the morning, first thing I thought about was real estate. It was the thing I thought about all day, and it was the last thing I thought about before I went to bed. Every week we put out the bandit signs. Every day I drove for dollars. Yep. It was all that we did because there was no backup plan. Like I did not want to go back and have to, get a job and look like a failure, because I told my parents, I'm moving up there and we're going to do this. My dad was like, I don't know, man, if that's what you want. You just don't want to be a failure.
Two things you said, I think, resonate so deeply with me is when I first was doing my research on the industry, I really did the same thing that you just talked about of my process, but I just started looking in different markets out there and I started filling out forms in different regions. I did like 10 in Orlando, and I'm sorry for the guy that cost you the PPC money. And then I did like 10 in Virginia and 10 here. But the amount of people who actually called back blew my mind. They don't.
Dude, I play this game when I'm driving in other cities and we call bandit signs.
Yes.
How many bandit signs do I have to call before somebody picks up? It's like 8. Like it's never the first guy. And then no calls come in for a week. It's not like somebody just missed the call, but it's the same thing with realtors. I mean, my God, just pick up the phone and call people and you'll win. Like it's the fucking bar is so low. Again, people would say like, well, I don't want to market in this city because there's a lot of competition. I'm like, I'll put my fucking team up against anybody. My God, on our worst day, we at least call people back and answer the phone. We're at least we're going to be in the top 5%, right? It's not that hard. And I never understood why people pay for marketing, pay to put out signs, pay for PPC, and don't fucking call back. I mean, and I'm sorry for swearing so much, but I just don't get it because it fires me up.
I don't get it either. You know why I think they do it, David? Honestly, if somebody asked me and said, hey, gun to your head, I think it's because in this industry, it's a rare industry where you can be mediocre and pay your bills. And so they're not really after a big bundle of money. They're just trying to trudge and float the water. So if I treat my leads 30% as good, maybe I'll make 30% of the revenue, but I can at least pay my bills, because why the hell else would you invest and then not get every last drop of that squeeze possible?
I don't know. Again, same thing with realtors, all of them. How many times have you called to get a quote for something and just nobody calls you back? I'm befuddled at it. Yeah.
So I know you guys have a better work ethics. And so for you, your team, you guys are investing, you're doing Chattanooga. How long were you just doing like wholesaling, investing prior to the ezREI opening, which is your core function now, correct?
Yeah. It's the only thing that we do. Well, so again, go back in time, 2009 and 10, nobody was rehabbing, right? Banks were not giving loans on new properties. They were busy taking old stuff back. So initially we just wholesaled, and I got really good at wholesaling the stuff under 25 grand, which kind of the hood or whatever you want to call it, the low income area. Like I absolutely crushed it there because we figured out that landlords were still buying, right? Landlords wanted to buy at a discount. And because the whole world, everything on the news was, it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world, houses are crashing. And it really wasn't in Chattanooga. Like the market here was only down 10%. Where like Florida dropped, 30, 40, 50%, like it dropped like a rock. But what are they hearing on the Today Show and the nightly news? It's the end of the world. So Scott, we could walk down the street and pick up properties. Like I was buying properties putting them under contract, 8 to 12,000, 13,000 and selling them and making 5, 6, 7 grand. Boom, 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 boom. Like it was the easiest thing. In fact, I remember when I got my first property over $40,000, it gave me a little anxiety. Like, oh my God, am I going to be able to sell this thing? So So did that for a couple of years, and then I realized, a longer story, but I started buying properties with owner financing, right? Because I'm going on all these leads. Best guy closes one out of 10, and I'm like, well, that's great, but what the fuck about the other 9? I need to have a pitch for these guys, So was doing a lot of marketing to free and clear properties, so I started pitching owner financing. Accumulated really over 3 or 4 years, over 100 rental properties, and kind of by that time, now the market was starting to shift a little bit and getting better, and that's when I rotated a little bit into doing rehabs. So I was doing 3 to 5 rehabs at a time, pretty consistently for a couple of years. Brought on a partner to bump the wholesaling back up because I realized we were leaving a ton of money on the table. Picked up another partner, and that's when we ended up having to go, nationwide into more markets because we were splitting our deals 4 ways, and that was just a little bit thin. So that's kind of the short version of the evolution: wholesaling, buying rentals into rehabbing, and then really bolstering the wholesaling back up and going into multiple markets. So
this is for me. This is very important for guys and gals that are listening, because one of the things that I see about this industry, and I don't want to say it about myself, turn this into something about myself, but I see so many vendors who are in the space or have never been in the space on the marketing side. They don't know how to generate the type of leads that is required. Somebody like you who has been in the space, you understand everything about it, from the seller sentiment to dealing with the banks and getting paperwork and divorces and deaths. And you literally, this experience that you have culminated into almost like the perfect type of opportunity for you to do this easy REI closings. But why? What, other than just I was upset, like you didn't find somebody good along the way and you had a great relationship with them, and because you're doing it for so many years, why did you finally say, no, I'm gonna do this?
Yeah. So very weird thing. I kind of backed into it. I never had this dream to run the biggest transactions company in the country. So sort of the evolution was I got into coaching reluctantly. I was coaching for dispositions and got that, not big, like I wasn't fucking Pace Morby, but I had a bunch of clients. That was just sort of the thing that I specialized in because nobody really taught dispositions, right? There still really isn't a lot of people. And because of that and just wholesaling for so many years and being in real estate, just by the nature of what I did, I was pretty good at solving title issues. So, sort of kind of became known for that, right? Dispositions. And I was, lots of guys and people would call me to, hey, what do I do on this weird title thing? So that was going on. COVID hits, and, a lot of my friends, let go of a lot of their team. Because remember, initially when COVID hit, we thought it was the end of the world, right? Everything stopped. People slash their teams. Well, I didn't. I kept my TCs in because my thought process was the same. Kent and some of the other coaches are like, hey, now's the time to double down and, let's make sure that we're going to take some market share. For me, I thought, okay, now if we're going to have a slowdown, I want to keep my people. I'm going to train them. I'm going to pour into training them so that when we come out of this, we're going to come out like a phoenix and come out the other side. So I had my people, and remember, it was like 6 weeks later, all of a sudden it was like we were off to the races. And some buddies, Corey Geary, some other people had called me, hey man, can you help with these transactions? I'm like, well, sure. Like actually, where I'm sitting right now was our transactions office. I'm like, yeah, man, we can kind of help you do that. And that sort of triggered something in my brain. I'm like, oh, maybe like there's nobody that does this in the industry. I think it's definitely something that's needed. Nobody reads Rich Dad Poor Dad and decides to become a title expert in how to abstract. Nobody's researching what a fucking monumento title is, right? Like how to solve those problems. And it's the place where so many deals get lost, right? Once you get a buyer, what do we do as wholesalers, right? As investors, we go out and search for people who have problems, right? The more problems we can solve, the deeper the discount we can get. And, that's awesome, right? We get a deep discount, but what do we say on the dispo side, right? Yeah. Clear title and proration of taxes. Well, you got to clear up all of those issues. So that, and there was one other thing. I did a bunch of JV deals, and I had this one guy. His name was Mario. He was from Alaska, but he invested in Macon, Georgia, which is really weird, but is what it is. So he called me one time, and I'm like, Mario, I'm like, I got your new deal. Hey man, dude, I just got to ask you a question. I love taking half your deals. I want to be straight with you, right? But like, you could dispose these deals yourself, right? He's like, yeah, one, my English isn't that good, so I don't feel comfortable talking with buyers. But also, I hate dealing with the title companies, and you guys do that well. Oh, and sort of all those things kind of came together at the same time, and I'm like, well, like there's nobody that does this. I wonder if I wonder if I could do this, right? And I sort of thought about it, and I was at a big meeting down in Tulum with a lot of the top wholesalers, and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this thing, and they're like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. It's brain damage. I'm like, yeah, I know, but like I think we can do it. Like I think it's a thing. I think it's something that's needed in the industry. And my God, if I had this when I first started, how great would it have been? So that's sort of the impetus of like how it got started. And then it was just I was doing it for Nick and Corey and a couple of my friends. We tested it out for a few months to make sure we got the kinks out, and then I think we rolled it out in October of 2021.
I love that. I look at the business in the REI space, kind of probably similar to you. You got like your marketing, your acquisitions, your dispositions, and title. And so like any part of this, the thing I think that people should hold on to the longest is the acquisition side. That's the part you want to be super, super dialed in on. And so when you have a trusted vendor like you that has done this at scale for so many people and now for so many years, like that's a valuable asset. I tell you, I talk to so many people in this industry where they'll inquire about my cold calling company out there. And I'll be like, hey, so how are you guys handling your dispo, your back end? And they're like, I'm on Investor Lift and I use ezREI. I'm like, great. You've accomplished a lot of your back end. And now I'll handle the marketing. And I just need you to call leads. Like I need you to call leads and treat them like you don't have any other distraction in the world. And if you do that with this team that you've amassed, because how many people roughly are in the ezREI organization?
Oh, our team, we're just slightly over 20, not nearly as big as you. But we're getting a new office, and I'm always watching your videos going, fuck, I want it to look like that. I want it to have that culture.
No, it's a brain damage. But still, being able to have that many people, like I tell people all the time, with all due respect, you probably couldn't afford a data scientist. So I have one for you that you get access to, because the same thing with this, a team of 10, 15 people. How many closings under the ezREI banner have happened?
I know our number last year was 2,202. Right now we have over 850 active files. Like, so we're, dude, it's a lot.
What's the number that gives you anxiety? Because if 850 isn't giving you palpitations, I don't know what is.
No, it doesn't. What we look at, though, we probably break. I'm sure you do something like this with your callers. For us, we look at our coordinators, and we're always balancing their file load, right? We know there's a number. Like once they get above a certain number, service starts to fucking slide, right? So, the way Heather, our, operations manager, we're always looking at it, and it's, we're kind of like on the beach watching the tidal wave come in, like, okay, what is sales doing? What are our affiliates doing? What are, what's coming? And do we need to start hiring? Because, it takes us 4 to 6 weeks to bring on a new group of TCs. So we're constantly, like, we do a group, then we do another group, and then, we're try to bring in 3 or 4 a month. Usually 75% of them stick. They're the right fit. So I'm always looking at that number, they're between 60 and 80, each person's a little bit different, 80 for our high people, 60 for our low people, but that's a lot of files to juggle and touch every single week. Like I promise, if it's a lot, but it's the only thing that we do. And we've got great software to try to keep it all organized.
Yeah. And I'm sure you get high maintenance from both sides, not only the seller side and the buyer, but also your client side. Update. So I know that you've given them an infrastructure to be able to see it. To have some transparency into the process. But I won't talk to anybody else who's doing 850 concurrent. That's like super hedge fund level. Like somebody in some BlackRock is like, oh, 850, no problem. But other than that guy, this doesn't exist in the world. So I'm going to ask some pointed questions, and I'm going to start with the toughest one first. What percentage, and maybe I don't understand the process enough once a deal is submitted to you, what percentage of files fall out?
Man, I'm going to tell you the industry number is 40%. We're a little better than that. We're probably only 30, like 31 or 32, just because our process is a little better. But it's a big number, and I think that's something most people have no idea about, right? And they're shocked. They're shocked when the number of deals fall through. They're going to fall through for a lot of reasons. Ultimately, only 2, right? You can't sell it, or you have a title issue, right? I think it's probably pretty 50-50. Can't sell it, you suck on the dispo side. Maybe you don't have investor lift, or you don't have some good process, right? Like you don't have to have investor lift. Like we survived before investor lift. Like it's just a process, right? So your marketing sucks, but more than that, than the dispo side, I think it's usually an acquisitions problem, right?
100%.
Didn't ask good questions, don't have a good feel for what the condition of the house is, overpaying, shitty acquisitions manager who just wants to get the contract and will just say anything to get the signature. They don't have any idea that there's 92 heirs and, it still needs to be probated and it's in the middle of foreclosure. I mean, it's just so many of those problems that become insurmountable on the backside, or, every title issue can be solved, but there's just not enough time, right? So to me, the bulk, of the half of the problems I can't sell the house, I would say 70% of them are an acquisitions problem, or at least started in acquisitions, right? You didn't understand what the deal was. You didn't give yourself enough time. And then on the other side, then there are title issues, and, everything can be solved if you understand how to navigate those waters, right? When I started, I went through this, right? You talked about like being a real investor and doing this. I would take my contract down to the title company, and this was the investor friendly title company in town. And it'd be like, oh, Davey, this one can't close. There's a dead person. You're going to have the seller go through probate. I'm like, the fucking seller's in a wheelchair and has no money. They can't do this, right? But it was constantly like, can't do it. Because you've dealt with attorneys, right? Everything's the fucking hard way. Nothing's ever the simple way. And, finally, dude, one day I remember I was at this old lady's house and I'm like, I'm going to help her. Like my empathy was like pouring out of me. I'm like, I got to help this woman. I go to the title company. I'm like, bam, another contract. And then the same bullshit. I'm like, dude, come on, man. There's got to be something we could do. What would you do? And he kind of looked at me and I got a little nervous because I was a little outside myself with the attorney. And finally, he's like, well, I guess if you do this and get a death certificate and obituary and you do these couple things, you can solve the problem. I can close it. And I'm like, well, first, that's great. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, how about the hundreds of fucking thousands of dollars of shit we've thrown away in the last 2 years? Right. So that's how I look at these deals, right? Like I get it. Like I'm the avatar for our clients, right? I'm fucking disorganized banana head, right? And I need somebody who is the inverse of me, who loves paperwork and loves problem solving and loves doing all that stuff, to carry these deals over the finish line so I can focus on the parts of my business where I make money, right? Which you brought up, right? Which is talking to buyers, talking to sellers. I have no fucking business being on the phone cold calling 2,000 people a day like you. I have no business trying to figure out how to run PPC. My God, my brain would explode, right? I should not be handwriting envelopes and sending out mail, right? That is not an income generating, it's administrative stuff. Same thing on the backside, right? So, and that was a hard lesson for me to learn in the very beginning. I was the guy, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs, hustlers, we're all afflicted with this little bit of narcissism that I'm the best. Nobody can do it as good as me. Nobody works as hard as me. And all that shit is true, right? We're all fucking great at something. We are. You're great as shit. I'm great as shit. Probably different shit. But we're not good at everything. And when I finally realized, holy shit, I need to bring in the best cold calling company. I need to bring in the best bookkeeper, the best property manager, and start to free up my time so I could focus on the shit that mattered. That's when my business went up and to the right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that your number is podcast conservative. My vantage point, I'd say about 50% of the industry loses deals. And I'd love to have the analytics on a guy like you that you have access to. Like your analytics, let me run a Power BI tool over yours. Let me get on the back end on Investor Lift. Oh my God, the decisions I'd be making if I could just see the breakout rate and where these people are acquiring. Because I firmly believe 90% of everything that has nothing to do with the title, because you don't know until you know, right? But is acquisitions. They're not building enough value. They're not asking for a big enough discount. And they're afraid to ask for real discounts. So I'm with you.
No, I told somebody that the other day, do not give somebody the number that they want. Because one, again, our job as investors is we're here to help people, right? Putting something under contract and not closing fucks people up more, right? These are real people. When I put it under contract, people start making choices in their life. They start packing. They start looking at new houses. They start getting ready to move. And for us to come back and cancel this contract because we're fucking lazy and don't want to give somebody the real number, that's a disservice to somebody. You're not helping anybody. Just because you get to go ring the fucking bell because you got a contract signed is not going to take this thing all the way over the finish line, right? Give somebody the real number. If that doesn't work, no problem, man. No bubbles, no troubles, right? Like I'm not going to be mad. This is the number that I can make this work. If that doesn't work for you, great. I'll be happy to follow up with you, right? So I think too many people they don't understand that what you're doing affects people, right? And this is the reason our industry is getting regulated.
I want to be respectful of your time. I know we got a hard stop here soon, but I want to piggyback off of something that struck me in the face. Slapped me in the face as soon as I got into this industry. If I could wave a magic wand and destroy any two words in this industry, it'd be projected profit.
Oh my
Fuck
God.
a projected profit.
It's the
These guys are celebrating fucking air. They're celebrating monopoly deals. It doesn't matter till David tells you clear to close. Yeah. And then even then, somebody might die or some shit might happen. You never know.
Oh my God. We've had people die the day before. No, you're right. How many people are on there showing their CRM with, I got whatever it is, $1,000, in whatever in deals. I'm like, dude, that's what you projected. One, you could be too fucking high. You could be projecting 60,000 on those deals. Who the fuck knows? But just because it's on your CRM screen does not mean jack and or shit, right? Yeah. What actually closed? What is the number? That's what counts, right? And if you're not smart enough to go back and kind of audit and adjust your processes based off your history of what's closing, you just it's bullshit online, right? Because it just gives people false hope. But what are you doing? You're fucking with your employees, right? Especially because most of them are commission based, right? You're telling them this is a $60,000 deal, and these kids are banking on that money before it shows up, right? Anyway, so I get fired up about that.
I agree. I want to hit you with two kind of last questions from your perspective. Reductions. Is the industry not doing a good enough job with reductions? Do they get an opportunity if they find out that, hey, listen, I put in my best effort, but I'm actually misaligned on the back end, or all of a sudden the mortgage was a little bit higher or whatever? I find from my experience, a lot of people don't have that as a mechanism in their business to use when needed. It shouldn't be abused. But what do you see on the reduction side from your at scale perspective?
Yeah, I agree. Not enough of them happen, but I don't think there's a process, right? The process is very simple. When I get the contract, hey, Mrs. Smith, congratulations, we're under contract. Hey, here's the next step. Someone from our transactions team is going to reach out to you. Hey, and Mrs. Smith, the price that we agreed on is, $89.5, and we came to that price just based off what you told me. So of course, if we come out there to the property and we find anything different, of course we'll have to look at this price. That makes sense, doesn't it? She says, yes. Boom. Now I've got a marker in the sand. So now when I get down the road, because again, we're making these offers virtual, which is why so many of these fall out, your buyers are going to tell you all the reasons your property sucks. And if you need to get a reduction, well, now you can go back. Hey, Mrs. Smith, hey, good news. We're ready to close next week. But there is some bad news. We went over there and, this actually is a real story. One whole wall of the house is filled with honeybees. Dude, that's for real. And so I'm like, of course, it's going to cost us, about $8,000 to get that removed. The only way I can close is if we can reduce it $8,000 to make up that difference. Are you cool with that? Great. Right. But yeah, it can be abused. Like I've seen people like they're making 40 and they go back and try to get another 5. Again, these are real people. I'm not telling anybody how to run their business. I just don't do that. I want to sleep at night. And my biggest fear, Scott, from the day I started this was I don't want to be in Walmart at 10 o'clock on a Friday and some old woman scream, "You fucked me on my house." Like that, I just don't want that, right? And I'm a lot of things. I know a lot of people don't like me, but I've never tried to fuck anybody over, and I try to be honest with everybody.
Yeah, dude, I love it. Let's talk about ezREI, man. I'm super stoked. Hopefully people can feel through this communication, this conversation that we had today, how much I am a believer in being able to outsource to the right people when the time is right. Yeah. And leveraging somebody else's expertise. ezREI closings, I think for me, it's one of those things where like you do it because you need it. You really need that expertise. Then you fall in love with the process and you're like, I never want to take that back. So how do people find you? How do they sign up? Kind of just at a high level, what's the process look like?
Yeah, the easiest thing, go to ezREIclosings.com. There'll be a little video of me. You can watch it, don't watch it. But underneath, there's just a little blue button that says book a call. Let's jump on a call. It'll be you and me or somebody on my team. Let's just see if we're a fit, right? Typically what I tell people is if you're doing 2 to 3 deals a month, you should be using us because one, we're cheap. Like, we do work on a subscription, but our if you were to divide that out, our per deal rate is half of the next person. We're going to get it done at an incredibly high level. Again, the people that we hire are very, lots of experience, right? High level, high quality level. But ultimately, even beyond that, is at 2 to 3 deals a month, I'll show you how to offset this, make your end buyer pay for it. And you can basically have us working for free or turn it into a profit center. So it makes zero sense not to use us. And I think that's one of the reasons why, we 4X the company last year. I just got off projections with my CFO. We're going to 3X this year at least. So yeah, that's why we're growing because one, we care. I'm an investor, so I run everything, from your point of view, from the wholesaler's point of view, because, you're not old enough probably to remember the old Hair Club for Men commercial, but like,
I talk about it all the time.
Okay.
I'm not only the president or the biggest customer. Well, how does it go?
Yeah. Not only am I a client, or not the owner, but I'm a client. Well, that's the fucking way I run this company, right? Like, I look at everything. I'm like, did we get little Bobby's deal in Phoenix closed? This may be his only $10,000 this fucking month, right? He's got a wife and a girlfriend, hopefully not both, 2 kids, a VA, a fucking car, and a rent. Like, his shit has to close. Get his shit closed today, right? We do not have time to dick around. This kid needs his money. That's our job. That's what we're here to do.
I won't spill the beans because I want people to book that call with you. It is wildly important to understand what your options are. But he breezed over one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen or learned or experienced in this industry is how to make his service paid for intelligently. And I'm not going to tell, we're not going to say here, if you want to know how guys like me and all the other players out there pay for his services without having to come out of pocket, you need to reach out to him because it is sexy. It's one of my favorite things that I learned in the industry. I was like, oh God, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, I appreciate coming on. If you guys want to book a call, please let me know that you came from the podcast here. I'm always interested to see and track all of that. But man, I mean, this is what we talk to our team about. We are just here to help you grow your business. That's it.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. David, it was a great conversation, man. I love getting your perspective. Maybe, again, we'll do this in the future. Yeah. But I appreciate you sharing your sales journey and how you can help other people focus on sales by being able to assist them with the transaction administrative side of their business so they can make more money, buy more marketing, get more deals, and then do it all over again.
Awesome, man. Hope to see you at an event soon, or maybe I just need to come on down there and hang out.
Open invite. I'll talk to you, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Bye.
All right, guys. We just concluded our podcast with David Olds from ezREIclosings. If you found value in this podcast, if it got you excited about sales, excited about real estate, making more money, I want you to subscribe. I want you to like. I want you to follow on all streaming platforms. We're trying to get the word out there that sales can improve your life, your kid's life, your spouse's life, whomever. Guys, it is a sport, and I am glad to be one of the coaches in it. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Let's go.